Welcome to Hairdressing Live. My name is Katrina Kelly and today's course is Theory Fundication. So today I'm hoping to make theory fun and educational in the easiest possible way because I only understand easy myself. So we're going to start with the hair itself. If you can imagine, the hair is an apple. The skin on the apple represents your cuticle. The white inside, does that look like an apple? Yeah. The white inside the apple is the cortex. And the little poisonous pip in there is the medulla. Not everybody has one, we don't need it. Okay? So if you can imagine that the skin is your cuticle, that protects the white, the cortex of the apple. If we cut an apple in half and we leave it out, once addition to air happens, that's called oxidization, and the apple will go brown. It's the same with your hair. It's really, really, really important to protect the cuticle layer at all times. So, another thing that I just want to talk about is the porosity of hair. Porosity is when low porosity is when the cuticle is sealed in. High porosity is when the cuticle sits open. So I want to explain that, and something that we do in our salon. We do porosity testing on every single client before we do colour. And how we do this is, if you can imagine that the hair is a boat, and if the boat has lots of little holes in it, it will sink to the bottom. High porosity. So what we will do is we'll take one strand of hair and we will pop it in the water. If it sinks to the bottom, it basically means that all the cuticle layers are open. So it's high porosity hair. If it floats to the very, very top, it means that it's low porosity. And if it stays in the middle, it's normal porosity. So what does that mean when we are colouring hair? Well, it's really, really, really important. So if I didn't do a porosity test on my client and she had high porosity hair, if the cuticle is sitting open, it basically means that the colour is going to penetrate straight through into that cortex immediately, which in turn can mean damage straight away. So when we do a porosity test, we're able to understand that if it's high porosity, that the cuticle is already open, we can in fact colour hair. If we're using bleach, we can colour it with bleach and water because everything is already sitting open. Or we can go in with a 5 vol or a 10 vol. If we didn't do this porosity test and we thought our client's hair felt really lovely and in great condition and that it was low porosity, we could mix up 20 vol pre-lightener and it'll go straight into the cortex of the hair and it'll damage the hair. Okay? So the one thing that I'd say as well when it comes to low porosity hair, that basically means that the cuticle is sitting nice and tight. It's nice and closed. So we could use a 20 vol pre-lightener on a client that has low porosity hair but not get the lift that we're looking for. So it's really, really important to diagnose porosity in hair. Another way of explaining this is if you can imagine that you have 2 cars. One car is going at 20 miles an hour with 20 vol. Another car is going at 80 miles an hour using 40 vol. What that basically means is that the car that's going further is going to run out of fuel much, much quicker. So it's really important as well to know your porosity levels. Okay? So now I just want to talk, I'll come back to that in a little while. I just want to talk about now the colour wheel because the colour wheel is really, really important to me. And I want you to look at colour in a different way now. I want you to forget about numbers. And I want you to look at colour, how it's meant to be. And everything for me comes back to the colour wheel. So we're going to start my little demonstration. So we have our primary colours. So our first let's hope this doesn't spill. So our first, oh, this is great, like live and shaky hand. So our first primary colour is red. And our second primary colour is blue. And our next is yellow. So it's really important to understand colour. This is what all our colour is made up of. Red, blue and yellow. So moving on now, we will go into our secondary tones. So how do we make them? And are they all equal? So, if we mix red and yellow, we will get orange, hopefully, if I prepared this correctly. Yeah, pretty much orange. And if we mix our blue and our yellow, we will get green. And if we mix our red and our blue, we will get violet, which looks pretty dark there, but it's violet. So why is it important to understand the colour wheel? Well, if we look at the colour wheel as a whole, we'll know that the opposites are going to neutralise your tone. And the one thing that I've learned is to go above the brands, because for me, I need to understand the colour wheel and why everything is happening. And the one thing that I have learned from brands is that, you know, when we mix everything, we get a natural tone. But in fact, when we mix everything together, we should be getting a neutral tone. So that makes me question the colour wheel, the centre of the colour wheel. So I have in here and in here. So for a natural, what you need to mix is 3 parts yellow, 2 parts red and 1 part blue. And for that basically makes you think differently with colour. So I am going to hopefully get brown with this, and I'm probably going to need more water. Yep. There you go, Paul. Thanks, darling.
Thank you.
So we have a lovely brown shade here. So that's our natural. And that natural is made from 3 parts yellow, 2 parts red and 1 part blue. I'm going to write that down just. So our natural, this is my canvas. I'm going to hang this on my wall because it's my very first hairdressing life. So our natural is 3 parts yellow, 2 parts red and 1 part blue. Oops, spelling wrong. There we go. The reason for that as well is blue is the most dominant tone. So even when we are creating these, our secondary tones, we put less of our blues in there. And as well, when it comes to your red and your yellow, it's not equal. Because remember, if it's equal, it's going to neutralise as well. Okay? So our opposite tones will neutralise. Made a mistake there. So this is our natural. So I'm going to pour. Okay? 3 parts yellow, 2 parts red, 1 part blue. So then, if the natural is not the centre of our colour wheel, what is our colour wheel? What's the centre of our colour wheel? Well, it has to be a neutral tone. So the centre of our colour wheel is not natural. It's not brown. The centre of our colour wheel is actually grey. Okay? And that's really, really important as well when you're working with colour, because if the hair, going back, if the hair is high porosity and you think that everything is equal and you're going to get a natural, you're actually going to get a neutral, and that's when the hair will grey out on you as well. So it's really, really important to understand what each thing does, okay? Now, so, and so we have, now, so when it comes to neutralizing tones, violet will neutralize yellow. So what do I mean when I say neutralize? Well, it's going to cancel out the yellow tone. But what will that give us? So violet plus yellow, they cancel each other out. It's actually going to give us a beige tone, depending how much you have in. So you can have 2 parts yellow, 1 part violet. So you're making colour every day. And the one thing I'll say as well is, if you're looking at the numbers all the time, so your 0.1s and your 0.2s, it can get very, very confusing. Everything comes back to your colour wheel. So, case study. If we have a client who is on a level 9 and she's yellow, underlying pigment is yellow. If she's at a level 9, she's yellow, underlying pigment, and we use, so let me just write this down, level 9. And we use something like a 10.2, so, which to me is a 10 violet, okay? So I don't even think of it as a 0.2, I just think of it as violet. So if I want my colour result to be a violet tone, and I use a 10 violet, or a 10.2, what will happen is the violet in this will neutralise my yellow. But then what happens to my result? Well, my result then will just be a 10, and I'm not going to get the 10 violet that I'm looking for. So this is where you have to formulate for your solution and not just your problem, okay? Because the problem here is the yellow, but our solution and our result, we want to be a 10 violet. So it's really important. So that's where you might double up on your violet to get your true reflection of colour.